Ever feel like the traditional financial system just doesn't quite uh, work for you?
Yeah.
You're not alone.
Yep.
Today, we're diving deep
Okay.
into decentralized
All
finance,
right.
or DeFi,
Right.
and exploring how it's shaking things up. We've got a stack of sources,
Okay.
articles, research, the whole nine yards.
Uh-huh.
And we're going to extract the juiciest bits for you. You ready to get your learn on?
Absolutely. What's really fascinating is that we're witnessing a potential power shift. It's not just about some fancy new tech. It's about who controls your money and how you access financial tools.
Okay, so let's start with what we know.
Okay.
Traditional finance, or TradFi.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking banks, investment firms, the whole system we're all familiar with. They're heavily regulated with all those KYC rules and licensing requirements, which are meant to protect us.
Exactly. Think of it like a safety net. You deposit your hard-earned cash into a bank, and you expect it to be there when you need it. But that security comes at a price, often in the form of high transaction fees and a resistance to change.
And that's where the frustration kicks in, right?
Yeah.
One of our sources talks about people struggling with sky-high interest rates on credit cards and student loans. It's no wonder some folks are looking for alternatives. Can you imagine if there was a way to bypass those hefty fees and get a fairer deal?
That's precisely where DeFi comes in. While TradFi relies on those big institutions,
Right.
DeFi leverages blockchain technology to
Ooh,
cut out the middleman.
interesting.
Think of it like a peer-to-peer network for financial services. You interact directly with others on the network without needing a bank or broker.
So it's like going off the grid,
Yeah.
but for finance. That sounds pretty radical, but
Mm.
how does it actually work? This whole blockchain thing still feels like a mystery to a lot of people.
I hear you. Imagine a digital ledger that's shared and constantly updated by a network of computers. That's essentially what a blockchain is. It's like a giant public record of every transaction, and it's incredibly secure because it's virtually impossible to tamper with.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So how does this blockchain magic apply to actual financial transactions?
Well, that's where smart contracts come in. These are self-executing contracts written in code and stored on the blockchain. They automatically enforce the terms of an agreement without needing lawyers or intermediaries.
So it's like a digital vending machine for
Yeah.
financial services.
Uh-huh.
You put in your crypto,
Yeah.
and the smart contract spits out the service you requested, like a loan or a trade.
Right.
No humans needed.
You got it.
Mm.
That's the beauty of DeFi. It's automated, transparent, and accessible to anyone with an internet connection.
That accessibility aspect is huge, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are still so many people around the world who don't have access to basic financial services. Could DeFi be the solution?
It certainly has the potential. Because DeFi operates outside of traditional systems, it bypasses a lot of the barriers that exclude people. You don't need a credit score or a bank account to participate, just an internet connection and a digital wallet.
That's pretty revolutionary, right?
Yeah.
Giving financial power back to the people.
Yeah.
But let's be real. It can't all be sunshine and rainbows. What are the downsides? Because I know our sources mentioned some concerns about DeFi.
Right. It's important to acknowledge the risks.
Mm.
One of the big ones is the lack of regulation. While this allows for incredible innovation, it also opens the door for scams and rug pulls. You've got to be really careful who you trust in the DeFi space.
That makes sense. So it's like the Wild West out there.
Mhm.
Lots of opportunity
Yeah,
and also a lot of potential for danger.
exactly. And because it's all built on code, there's always the risk of bugs or vulnerabilities in the smart contracts. One wrong line of code could lead to millions of dollars being lost.
Ouch. That sounds pretty scary. And what about that PulseZen project mentioned in our sources? It's this DeFi platform that claims to redistribute wealth. Is that even possible?
PulseZen is an interesting example. It uses this pay-it-forward function
Mhm.
where a percentage of transaction fees are automatically shared with everyone who holds their token.
Okay, so they're basically trying to create a more equitable system
Yeah,
within DeFi.
yeah.
That sounds pretty noble, but is there a catch?
Well, the biggest concern is sustainability. Can this redistribution model work long-term, or will it eventually collapse? And what happens if someone figures out a way to game the system?
That's a good point. It's like any new technology, there are always unintended consequences. But even with the risks, it seems like DeFi is shaking things up in a major way. Is it really a threat to the traditional financial system, or could they potentially work together?
That's the million-dollar question. Many see them as being at odds, but one of our sources, an article from Hedera, suggests a different perspective. It points out that some TradFi institutions are cautiously exploring blockchain technology.
So instead of a fight to the death,
Right.
it could be more of a dance. Like they each learn from the other and evolve.
Precisely. Imagine a future where banks use DeFi principles to offer faster, cheaper services. That kind of hybrid system could really benefit everyone.
That's a tantalizing thought.
Yeah.
So we've got this potential clash, potential collaboration. It's a lot to wrap our heads around. But let's bring it back to you, the listener. What does all this mean for your financial journey?
That's what we'll be exploring in the next part of this deep dive. We'll look at specific examples of how both TradFi and DeFi are being used in the real world and what opportunities and challenges each presents. Welcome back. I'm eager to continue our exploration of this financial landscape, where the lines between traditional and decentralized are blurring.
Me too. We've laid the groundwork, but now I'm itching to see how these concepts actually play out in the real world. I remember our sources had some pretty compelling examples of the frustrations people have with TradFi.
Right. One story that really stuck with me, it talked about folks drowning in credit card debt, trapped in a cycle of high interest rates. They felt powerless, like the system was rigged against them. It's easy to see why DeFi, with its promise of lower costs and more control, is so appealing.
Yeah, it's like David versus Goliath, except in this case, David has a smartphone and a decentralized network. But, okay, enough with the metaphors. Let's get down to brass tacks. What are people actually doing with DeFi? I mean, beyond that Pulse Zen project, what other applications are out there?
Well, one of the most popular use cases is lending and borrowing, but without the traditional gatekeepers. Imagine cutting out the bank and getting a loan directly from another person, all facilitated by a smart contract.
Hold on, so I can essentially become my own bank. That sounds way too good to be true.
It's not about replacing banks entirely, but rather offering an alternative. With DeFi lending, you can deposit your crypto assets into a protocol and earn interest, kind of like putting money in a savings account, but potentially with much higher returns. Or you can use your crypto as collateral to borrow other cryptocurrencies.
So it's like a peer-to-peer loan system, but with crypto. But what happens if the value of my crypto plummets? I mean, we all know how volatile this market can be.
That's a crucial point. If the value of your collateral drops too low, you could get liquidated. Basically, the platform automatically sells your crypto to cover the loan. Think of it like the bank repossessing your car if you miss payments, but it happens much faster in DeFi.
Okay, so it's not without risks. You've got to be savvy and keep a close eye on the market. But what about other DeFi applications? I remember something about decentralized exchanges, or DXs. Let's deal with those.
DXs are shaking up the world of cryptocurrency trading. Imagine buying and selling crypto without going through a centralized exchange like Coinbase or Binance. Instead, you're interacting directly with other users through smart contracts.
So it's like a peer-to-peer marketplace for crypto. That sounds pretty appealing, especially with all the talk about privacy and security concerns with those big exchanges. But hold on, if there's no central authority, how do you ensure trades are fair and that people don't get ripped off?
That's where the brilliance of smart contracts comes in. They act as the impartial intermediary, automatically executing trades based on predefined rules. This eliminates the need for a third party and reduces the risk of manipulation or fraud. Plus, you typically pay lower fees compared to centralized exchanges.
That sounds like a win-win. But let's be honest, this whole DeFi thing still feels pretty complex. Is it really accessible to the average person who might not be a tech whiz or crypto expert?
That's a valid concern. One of the biggest challenges facing DeFi is user experience. The technology can be intimidating and the learning curve is steep.
So what needs to change? How can we make DeFi more user-friendly and less daunting for newcomers?
Well, for starters, we need better educational resources and simpler, more intuitive interfaces. Imagine a DeFi app that's as easy to use as your favorite banking app. That's the goal, and we're starting to see some progress in that direction.
Yeah, that would be a game changer.
Huh.
But what about the regulatory elephant in the room? I mean, we talk about how the lack of regulation is both a blessing and a curse. Is that likely to change anytime soon?
It's inevitable. As DeFi grows and attracts more mainstream attention, governments are going to want to step in.
But wouldn't that stifle innovation? Isn't part of DeFi's appeal the fact that it operates outside of traditional systems?
It's a legitimate concern. Too much regulation could definitely hinder progress, but I believe there's a way to strike a balance. We need smart regulation that protects consumers without stifling innovation. It's all about finding that sweet spot.
Okay, I can see that. But let's zoom out for a second and look at the bigger picture. How is DeFi impacting the way we think about money and finance as a whole?
It's challenging the very notion of what money is and how it works. For centuries, we've relied on governments and central banks to issue and control currency. But cryptocurrencies and DeFi are creating a parallel financial system that operates outside of those traditional structures.
It's like a whole new financial universe is emerging, right? And it's powered by code and community. Pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
It is, and it's just the beginning. We're still in the early stages of this financial revolution.
So what's next? What trends should we be watching for in the DeFi space?
One trend that's particularly exciting is the rise of decentralized autonomous organizations, or DAOs.
Okay, I've heard that term thrown around, but honestly, I'm not quite sure what it means. Can you break it down for us?
You mentioned DAOs. For those unfamiliar, a DAO is essentially a group of people making decisions together online using blockchain to keep everything transparent and secure. Imagine a company run by a hive mind. That's kind of what a DAO is like.
Okay, that's starting to make more sense.
Yeah.
So how are DAOs being used in the DeFi space?
Well, one application is in managing decentralized finance protocols. Instead of having a company running a lending platform or a decentralized exchange, you could have a DAO where the community of users makes the decisions.
So it's like a democracy for finance. That's pretty radical.
Exactly. And it's not just limited to finance. DAOs can be used for all sorts of things, from managing open source software projects to coordinating charitable donations.
That's amazing. It sounds like DAOs have the potential to change the way we organize and collaborate on a fundamental level.
Agreed. And another trend to keep an eye on is the increasing integration of TradFi and DeFi. We talked about how some traditional financial institutions are dipping their toes into the DeFi world.
Right, so it's not necessarily a winner-take-all scenario. It could be more of a fusion of the old and the new.
Precisely. The future of finance is likely to be a hybrid system that combines the best of both worlds.
We've covered a lot of ground here, but it feels like we're just getting started.
Mhm.
What other insights do you have in store for us?
Well, in the final part of our deep dive, we'll shift our focus to you, the listener. We'll explore how to navigate this complex financial landscape and empower you to make informed decisions about your own financial future.
Welcome back to the final leg of our DeFi journey. We've explored the ins and outs of TradFi and DeFi and how these two worlds might collide or collaborate.
It's been quite a ride, but the real question is, what does this all mean for you? We've thrown a lot of information your way, and now it's time to empower you to make sense of it all.
Exactly. It's all well and good to talk about blockchain magic and decentralize this and that, but at the end of the day, it's about making informed decisions for your own financial well-being.
Absolutely. The first thing to remember is there's no one-size-fits-all answer when it comes to TradFi versus DeFi. Both have their pros and cons, and the ideal approach depends on your individual circumstances.
So it's not about picking a side, but rather finding the right balance for your specific needs and goals.
Precisely. It's about understanding your options and making choices that align with your financial aspirations.
Okay, let's get practical. If someone's listening to this thinking DeFi sounds intriguing, but where do I even begin? What advice would you give them?
Start by feeding your curiosity. There's a wealth of information available online. Articles, videos, podcasts, even entire communities dedicated to this. Take some time to learn the basics of blockchain technology, explore different cryptocurrencies, and dive into the various DeFi protocols.
So it's like any new skill, you've got to invest some time and effort to learn the ropes. But what about those who are ready to take the plunge and actually invest in DeFi? What words of wisdom would you offer them?
First and foremost, do your due diligence. Don't just jump into the first shiny project you come across. There are scams and risky ventures lurking out there, so research carefully and choose reputable platforms and protocols.
Right. It's like the old saying, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, especially in the fast-paced world of DeFi. But what about the emotional side of investing? I imagine it can be pretty nerve-wracking, especially for newcomers.
Absolutely. It's crucial to manage your emotions and avoid making impulsive decisions. Never invest more than you can afford to lose and be prepared for volatility. The crypto market can be a roller coaster ride.
Speaking of community, I remember you mentioned how the DeFi community is one of its greatest strengths.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because it's a space driven by collaboration and shared knowledge. It's full of passionate individuals who are building the future of finance together. Don't be afraid to reach out, ask questions, and learn from others who are on this journey with you.
It's like a giant online brainstorming session with everyone contributing ideas and pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
Exactly. And that spirit of innovation is what makes DeFi so exciting. We're still in the early stages of this movement, and there's so much potential for growth and disruption.
It's like we're witnessing the birth of a new financial paradigm, one that's more transparent, accessible, and equitable.
Precisely. And it's a paradigm that's here to stay. Whether you're a seasoned investor or just dipping your toes into the crypto waters, the decentralized future of finance is something to pay attention to.
Well said. It's been an incredible journey exploring the world of TradFi and DeFi. We've demystified complex concepts, uncovered hidden opportunities, and hopefully empowered you to take control of your financial destiny.
Remember, the key is to stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged. The world of finance is evolving rapidly, and those who embrace this change will be the ones who reap the rewards.
So there you have it, folks. A deep dive into the future of finance, filled with insights and inspiration to help you navigate this exciting new landscape.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible in the world of finance.